Dariq Whitehead is one of the biggest upside swings in the 2023 NBA draft. This is Floor and Ceiling, let's break him down. Whitehead entered this season as a 5-star recruit and one of the very best players in the country. For example, I had him penciled in as a top 5 pick in my preseason big board. Whitehead, who will still be 18 on draft night, has prototypical size for an NBA wing at 6'7" with a 6'10 plus wingspan. At Duke, he proved himself to be an exceptional shooter from 3-point range. In his freshman year, Whitehead converted on 43% of his threes on high volume relative to his minute load. About half of his total shots came from the perimeter, and he took 10 threes per 100 possessions. But although the former 5-star recruit converted on these looks at a high clip, Whitehead was probably not shooting so many threes by choice. The New Jersey native sustained a right foot injury in August before the season started, which derailed his freshman campaign, and then in January he suffered a lower leg strain. During the pre-draft process, Whitehead has had a second surgery on his previously injured right foot, and he should be ready for training camp, but all of this affects his draft stock. More importantly for me, it affects how we can evaluate Whitehead. If we're staying honest, then we have to acknowledge that he was severely hampered by his injuries in college. And so, Whitehead is one of the prospects this year whose tape before school is very important. Before college, mostly at Montverde Academy in Florida, he really showed off a lot more than he was able to during his only season at Duke. All throughout high school, Whitehead was still projected as a good or very good shooter, but the big difference was how he got to these shots. With the Blue Devils, Whitehead was first and foremost a floor spacer. He took a lot of spot ups and other players were usually creating for him. But at Montverde and previous levels, it was Dariq who had the ball in his hands a lot of the time. In regards to scoring, he showed off some self-creation. We saw this very scarcely in college. But it was much more common to see Whitehead look for his pull-up as a first option before this season. This is upside which we must factor in when Whitehead gets drafted. It's not like he was super inventive from 3, but I thought he was effective getting to his triple out of reduced dribbles. Defenses had to respect his pull-up, and part of that is because they also had to respect his drive, given that Whitehead is genuinely a solid athlete when he's fully fit. Staying on the topic of Whitehead's self-creation, let's get into the mid-range. First, in his freshman year at Duke, there were some flashes here. He made 17 2-point jumpers for the season, which is some sort of baseline, I guess. But I think what it boils down to is that at around 6'7" in shoes, Whitehead has the ability and touch to elevate over defenders. Again, he was more interesting showing this off before college. Dariq's 3-point numbers this year and overall touch, plus his tape, make me think that he can be a pretty good shooter, and I'm also of the thinking that he can play 2 through 4 with his size and length. Whitehead is able to take smaller defenders into the post. He has range on his turnaround fall away there like we're seeing. And this make right here is overshade and sharp to give you an idea. There are definitely questions over Whitehead's shooting still. In college, the biggest thing was that he just didn't really do much if he wasn't scoring from 3. About half of Dariq's shot diet came from beyond the arc, so if he was cold there, he was kinda cold from everywhere. Hopefully that problem is limited to only this season, but overall, and as we will get into, I do think that Whitehead has real improvements to make when it comes to creating for himself off the bounce. Even in high school, his handle was fairly basic, He was always more comfortable out of 1 or 2 dribbles rather than long possessions, which has benefits and drawbacks. Even without injuries, Whitehead struggles to constantly create separation for himself on his shot. He is a tough shot maker, but in turn, that also means that he attempts many high difficulty shots. His handle doesn't allow him to chain moves together, so Whitehead, like I said, is unable to create separation between himself and the defender. We see this right here against Jordan Walsh, who's also in this year's draft. And I think that all of this means that Whitehead can take shots out of rhythm. At this point of his development, he's very much a score-first player, but he hasn't diversified his scoring arsenal enough yet, in my opinion. Whitehead's shot selection is also improvable in terms of timing. At Duke, it seemed like he was antsy to do anything but take threes sometimes. But even before college, Whitehead would take ill-advised shots early in the shot clock. Getting closer to the rim to his finishing, it was very rough at Duke. Whitehead took only 45 shots at the rim all season, and he made just 24 of those attempts, which is less than total games played. Obviously, the reading on that is really bad, and Dariq barely got to the free throw line as well, taking just 1 foul shot per night. He also missed 2 of his 4 dunk attempts on the year. However, I really feel like Whitehead's finishing woes can be overlooked and attributed to his injury situation. It's evident that he was not comfortable driving into the paint or even exploding forward at full speed sometimes. As a college freshman, Whitehead had no burst at all, but the story was much different in high school. Now, Whitehead was not a great athlete, but he was a good one, powerful in transition, strong with his upper body, and athletic in space. All of these items should theoretically translate well to the NBA, where a lot of the game is played in transition, and Whitehead will have greater space available to him than in high school or college. I think he'll be able to handle the ball in the half court as well as in transition, and get to his spots with his first step and length. More than that, Dariq is much more assertive than he showed at Duke, where there were times where he could just float through a game. To give you an idea, Whitehead had 18 games scoring in single digits. But that was never the case before. The former 5-star recruit made himself felt every night, pushing the ball in transition, looking for his own bucket aggressively, and constantly putting pressure on the opposing rim. Still, Whitehead had plenty of improvements to make looking forward. The biggest ones for me relate to his pace and handle. Whitehead is wired to score, so he's always looking for a bucket, and that can make him predictable. This can also make him play out of control, and Dariq is going to need to learn how to change up the cadence and speed of his dribbles. Right now, everything is at full throttle. The same goes for how he changes directions. The Duke freshman is mostly a north to south driver at this stage, and I'm not sure that he has the twitchiness or shiftiness to operate in tight spaces. At Duke, Whitehead was not a playmaker at all. He did not facilitate for others in any way whatsoever. Whitehead had 27 assists in 28 games, which is honestly pretty surprising for any high-level player. Dariq finished the season with 39 turnovers, which really isn't even that high, but it's just that his creation for others was so bare bones. The encouraging takeaway from this might be that Whitehead's turnovers this year were more so related to his handle and decreased level of athleticism. Both of those things are fixable. However, I really want to see him get better at attacking closeouts, for example. He struggled at Duke with this, and since Whitehead projects as a great 3-point shooter who already shot 40% from the outside, he will need to leverage that better going forward. And in general, he's just going to need to improve his ball security. Still, I think Dariq is a better passer than what he showed in college, which was just about nothing. Facilitating was not his role for the Blue Devils, and all Whitehead did was make a complimentary pass here and there. Again, what we have to do is rewind and look back at the pre-college tape to see what these flashes of playmaking resemble for Dariq. He's more of a secondary or tertiary playmaker down the line, so these passes are all pretty basic, but I'm okay with that. More than that, I'm trying to show that Whitehead has higher feel than he can be given credit for in his only college season. He can make some passes over the top at 6'7", read when a defense collapses, and when he grabs and goes, he's able to push the tempo. On defense, Dariq Whitehead is almost a blank slate for me because I don't think he has enough experience making high-level defensive reads in high-stakes situations. There are flashes across the spectrum, good and bad, but the big improvement area to target is his off-ball awareness. This has been an issue for Whitehead's entire career. He's prone to ball watching, and in general, he just tends to be so much more engaged when he's on the ball. Dariq's discipline and motor have to remain consistent, but as an individual defender like I alluded to, I think he's okay, and he was better at Duke than down the other end I thought maybe. The Blue Devils did a good job at not putting Whitehead in stressful situations on this side of the ball, but he's big and long at 6'7" with a wingspan over 6'10", so Whitehead can cover up ground versus smaller guards or wings. But generally speaking on defense, his effort level is pretty up and down, and his motor tends to wane. I'm choosing to remain optimistic based on the overall package. Whitehead has great size for a wing. Ideally, he'll be able to defend 2s and 3s, maybe some smaller 4s, and I believe that he'll be a decent enough athlete while having that plus length and size in his favor. I think patience is probably the name of the game with Dariq Whitehead, former 5-star recruit, who I think we have to really keep in mind that his entire college experience was really affected by injury. Still, he proved that shooting is a bankable skill right off the bat, 40% from 3, and then we look back at his high school tape and we see a lot more flashes. Better athleticism, more assertiveness, improved effort on defense, more self-creation. Whitehead is going to need at least a year, I think, before he might even play on an NBA court. But long term, he is very much a bet that I am willing to make. As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. Make sure to leave a comment telling me what you think of Dariq Whitehead. And if you enjoy the channel, if you want to watch more content like this, make sure to subscribe. Take care, and I'll catch you guys next time.